Welcome back, horror fiends. Welcome to the Horror Fiend Podcast featuring The Last of Us. This is episode 3. I'm joined here with JR, Ricky Grimes, my partners in crime today. I'm definitely ready to dive into this one. I thought this episode was probably the most beautiful one. I feel like I've been crying every episode with Sarah and then Tess and now Bill and Frank. And there's going to be more tears, just so you know. I've been crying every freaking episode, but I'm excited to dive right in. So what were your first, I'm going to start with JR this time. What was your first reaction to this episode? And this was more of a slow burn type of episode. So what were your thoughts?
Well, you know what? It's very rarely where you get a show where you actually take the two main characters and put them to the side for an episode, basically. Because this wasn't really about Joel and Ellie. This was more about Bill and Frank. And you guys were pumping me up about the Bill and Frank characters from the last episode we talked about. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting thing. I like Bill. I like Bill a lot. The fact that just the way we're introducing him, the survivalist / prepper. The guy who has basically a bunker beneath his basement. Just kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, it was an interesting episode because it kind of showed you somebody who's actually living in the outskirts of the quarantine zone and surviving. And the fact that you got a backstory and it built up to like how Bill was by himself, how eventually he met Frank, and then unfortunately what happens to them later on in the episode. But yeah, it was actually really good, and it was yeah, it's one of those things where I'm glad we got to see something different. Like, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about we were talking about before we came on, but controversies of this episode. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a good episode to watch. I like the fact that there wasn't much involved as far as the infected. This is basically more grounded on the human nature of being stuck in a post-apocalyptic world. But yeah, it was a very interesting episode. I liked it.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed it. I'm not a fan of bottle episodes, and technically this is what it kind of is, but I never got that impression. Only afterwards, I was like, wait a minute, that was really a bottle episode. If you're not sure what that is, that's just when the whole main story gets put to the side for smaller cast of characters, and but Joel and Ellie did bookmark, they bookended, the episode, which was nice. And I love the interaction between Ellie and Joel for sure, especially when Ellie asked him about how it all started, and Joel actually was telling the story, and lo and behold, of course, it's pretty much what everybody was guessing, which was the flower. And I love the animosity between the two, especially Ellie she was feisty towards him, they both wanted to I don't know, they were expecting apologies from each other, but they didn't want to, so they were like, you don't got to say I'm sorry. All right, whatever. Good. We're good. All right, let's go. I don't know. I like that. But overall, yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Very well made. The acting, top tier. And yeah, I liked the direction the show was going because they threw us a curveball in episode 2. Episode 3 now. Definitely different from the first 2, and I like that because it keeps you on your toes. You don't know what to expect. And we're going to get into it later, but I think they're saving some of the more action-y stuff that should have been here for the next one. But we'll get into that. But overall, I really did enjoy this episode. I think GR said a lot of those thoughts I already had, so not much to complain there, but we'll get into it.
Yeah, I definitely loved this episode. Like I said, it was a tearjerker, and we'll dive into more of what I mean about that. But it was definitely, more of a slow burn type of episode, but it was much needed. And we'll go into more detail when it comes to the game versus the series. But I like, and it kind of ties with that though, because I like that it was a moment for Bill and Frank. And I gotta say, I love Bill way more because, I mean, it's Bill's town, and that's one of the coolest things in the whole episode is just he had a Home Depot, he had this and that, like the ammo shop and grocery store. Like he had it all to himself. So, and then when Frank comes in, he was missing that one piece, which was companionship or love or friendship even. So I loved that they had a moment of their story, which I'll just say now, you don't get their story in the game. You get hints of things, but we'll dive more into that. But I do love this episode. It was a nice slow burn. It wasn't like boring or anything. It definitely kept me on my feet because Bill was so interesting. And I got to give it to the actor, which I know he's from comedy and I can't remember his name. I know you know, Rick.
Nick Offerman.
Yes. And yeah, like it's nice to see. And I love that about actors or actresses that can go from a different genre into horror and just freaking nail it. And I love the change. So kudos to who plays Bill. Alrighty. So thoughts, JR, on Bill and Frank's story, which is going to be more interesting from your view.
Well, it was more like I liked how it was constantly hinted how Joel, even when Joel started talking about Bill, how he said, I like Frank better than Bill. So right off the bat, you knew there was an animosity between a weird friendship animosity towards each other because, we'll talk about later on what happens. But I like the way how, it was introduced because you had a scene where Bill's eating and all of a sudden he hears the alarm that he sets up and here's one of the freaking infected just walking and head gets blown off. I started laughing. I'll be honest, I rewinded that twice because that shit was just funny as fuck. But then all of a sudden you get another thing where the alarm trips off and he goes out there and there's Frank in the hole. And, Bill's so used to being isolated that for him, I feel like anybody who comes around is infected and he's ready to pull the trigger no matter what. So the fact that he had second thoughts of pulling the trigger, and even when Frank says I'm a bad liar, he still brought him in. I mean, the whole thing where you have this one person living in, and you get the idea that Bill's always been that isolated individual, that he's apart from the world. He doesn't want to be part of the world. And then he brings him in, cooks him a nice dinner. And one of the things with Bill is even the fact that he's set in certain ways where he put the plate down and he tilted it in a certain angle.
I like that.
And then what's the Frank do? He tilts it the other direction because that's not the way he just usually eats. So right off the bat, you're like, I wonder how the dynamic's going to work with these two. But yeah, it became one of those weird things where you actually get a love story in a post-apocalyptic environment that's not pushed on you, that's not forced. It was basically well done and crafted to the point where you had Bill's resistance to welcome anybody to Frank's basically outgoing personality that he welcomes anybody. Because remember that one scene where he's throwing a temper tantrum because he wants to mow the lawn. And Bill's like yelling at him because, hey, we don't have any friends. Look around. There's no friends out here. Oh, no, but I've been talking to this nice lady on the radio and stuff. I mean, the whole setup was really good. And I liked that because it felt refreshed. A lot of love stories in post-apocalyptic things are forced. And this one went very smoothly than the way it was written and told and acted. And yeah, I mean, it was a good roller coaster between both of them. And that one scene where Joel tells him, listen, those gates, they might hold back the infected, but there's others out there, the Raiders. And then you kind of get a glimpse of you want to see the Raiders, and you saw the Raiders, and poor guys, he just got burnt to hell. But yeah, their relationship was really good. I enjoyed their story.
You had a flamethrower coming out of the fucking fence, son. JR mentioned the word it wasn't forced on you, which is nice because this story was told through a passage of time. It starts at the very beginning at 2003, then it moves like 4 or 5 years later, then 10 years, and until we're caught up. And I like that because it shows the progression of the two. And when Frank first enters Bill's home, there's dust everywhere. He slides his finger across the mantle of dust. And if you notice when Bill walks in, he notices it immediately. Like, wait a minute. There's a clean spot there. So then as the story progresses, if you notice, Bill's house becomes more alive, more vibrant, clean. And at the end of the episode, when they're not there anymore, you notice the dust is coming back, and the candles burnt out, the food's rotting out. It's interesting because they really took two characters and they wanted to tell this passage of time through them. The only thing I wish they dealt more with infected during that time, just because it almost seems that they're too safe there.
Mhm.
You know, and there's got to be some sort of effect here. They did show the guy at the fence, which is cool. I dug that. But there's a lot of little things going on between the two. Like Frank immediately knew that Frank was gay. I mean, that Bill was gay from the jump. And he was like not pushing on him, but he was being real. Well, not to sound stupid, he was being frank with him. You know what I'm saying? Like he was really telling him, "Nah, I know who you are." Like, even when he gave him the rabbit and the wine, and Bill was like, "Well, you may not think I'm into this," and Bill was like, "No, you do seem." No, I'm sorry, Frank. Frank was like, "You do seem the type that would be in." Like they know each other. You could see that, and I like that. But their relationship was pretty cool, man. And in the game, this is the one thing I do know: Frank and Bill didn't have the most sturdy relationship by the end. And if you read the notes that Frank left behind, I'm not going to get into that too much. I leave that for Lexi, but it's there. So then here, after they have sex, it goes 10 years later, I believe. And now they're fighting. They're all like up each other's throats. So you said it, JR. Like Frank wants to make the whole neighborhood clean and welcoming. Bill's like, nah, fuck that. So I like that. I like that they added it in there because in the game, that was their relationship. It seemed kind of rocky at times, but it's realistic. And of course, at the end, it was sad. It was hard to watch. I'm not going to say I was bawling or anything like that, but it was in a sense where what's going to happen with these characters. But it's like, man, they lived through all this, and this is how they're going to go out. But if you think about it, damn, that's really not a bad way to go out, though. So I loved it. Their story was great, and it didn't it wasn't for nothing because when Bill left a note for Joel, he mentioned take care of Tess in that note, and that just broke Joel. So Joel's thinking he let down Sarah, he let down Tess. Now he's all in on Ellie. Before he wasn't. He was more reluctant. He didn't want nothing to do with it. It was more it's a nuisance for him. It's not something he wanted to do. But now that's gonna bring him to the point. You know what? I'm not feeling this one. I failed twice already. I'm not feeling this one. So I like that. And plus, they got deodorant out of it. So
not in the shower. In the shower. I just jump in real quick on one thing.
Yeah.
And the fact that he pointed out how, Frank basically started passed his finger on the mantle and he saw the dust. If you want to take a cool thing about the way that it was filmed, when we meet Frank, he's in the darkness. So he's just in front of a screen waiting for troops to come in. But when he's by himself, everything always seems dull and dark. The minute Frank comes in, those time frame that jumps, the house is well lit. Mm-hmm. The house is full of life.
Yep.
And the fact is when you don't see both of them is where you get the house is full of death with the flies all over the food, nothing being cleaned. And I thought that was just that dynamic itself, the way it was filmed. Definitely very well done.
The attention to detail of the show so far, bro. Right. Oh my god! Yeah. Just Bill's room in the beginning. If you look at they had the "Don't Tread on Me" poster, "Join or Die." Like just seeing the images, it tells you who he is. That's all you need. No one has to explain it to you. He doesn't got to explain it to you. It's all there. And in fact, he's using Windows 10 because you don't want to upgrade it. If he updates it, he's probably gonna. They're gonna be watching them now, you know what I'm saying? So little things like that, man, it's so good, so good.
I loved Bill and Frank's story. I love that there was some sort of normalcy of life with this episode. I mean, if you're in that situation, I guess some people want one thing, but what do most people want is love, to not be alone through this apocalyptic shit. I would want someone with me, and I think that's what Bill wanted deep down inside, because again, he had a whole ass town to himself. He's kind of bored, but I loved his whole setup. with the cameras and the traps and the scene. I mean, you both nailed it right on the head. The scene with the he's looking into the camera and the clicker gets shot dead from one of his traps. And then he's thinking another clicker, but it's really Frank. And, you know, I love the whole scene where they're at the piano together. It was a beautiful scene between the two.
Long time. Good song.
Yeah. And then I love the progression of seeing them age together. I mean, because that's what we want in life. All of us do. We want to age old with somebody.
Yeah.
Hopefully never in a bad situation like the world they live in. But I love that they show some type of normalcy to life. I love the scene. I think the absolute most favorite part I loved was the strawberries in the garden.
I was just going to mention that earlier.
Yeah.
Bill cried.
Yeah, Bill cried, but it was just so cute, and I loved their connection together. Not in front of the strawberries.
You know what's sad to taste a strawberry
cute.
after so long like that. And I like when he said, "What'd you get these for?" Oh, I traded Joel one of your pistols for this.
Which one? Oh, a small one.
The small one. Don't worry about it.
I loved their whole connection together, and they didn't die from a bite. They didn't die from a clicker, or they didn't go down the wrong way. They went down together in love, in matrimony. You know what I mean? So I love that they got married at the end too, in their way.
By the piano too, right? Where did they get married at?
By the piano, yes.
Yeah, right, it was.
Yeah. And I also loved the scene. I'm so happy we got to see Tess just for a glimpse. It was nice to see her the whole dinner, and I loved
younger too at that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had the gun pointed at Joel, and he's like, "Get the gun out of my face." But I love that. I want to call it a bromance almost. You know what I mean? Like, even in the letter that Ellie reads out loud, he says, "I hated you."
But there was respect there.
Yeah. But there was there was a respect there between the two. That's why I kind of call it bromance or whatnot. But he also, the first name he called out when they saw the raider and Bill gets shot, and the first name he says is call Joel because I don't want you to be alone. And so there was some type of mutual respect there between the two. But this whole episode was great.
Even when he wrote the letter, he said, if anyone finds this, let's be real, it's going to be Joel.
Probably Joel. So little subtle hints like that. That's why I say it's bromance. Because they're
absolutely.
They do like each other. They just don't want to show it because they're both hardened. They're both tough. And so... And I love the yin and yang between Bill and Frank because they're complete opposites. Yeah. Like you said, Bill is just a hardened man, and Frank is just full of life and wanting friends. And so I love the whole story between the two. It was perfect. This episode was by far my favorite. I have to say it is by my favorite. I mean, I love the clickers. Don't get me wrong. From episode 2, they're my absolute fave. But this story, it was great. So as far as changes of the game and Easter eggs, now
chat us up. What's good, Lexi? What's good?
Yeah, I'm not going to speak on Easter eggs because I didn't notice much. Maybe I missed it, but game changes. Frank and Bill had a relationship, but in the game, Frank was using him for the town. Frank, they also lived in separate houses. And so in the game, and I just recently played, and to answer your earlier question, actually, Rick, the Fedra soldiers came in and got Tess, not the stalkers and
the that's what I figured. Yeah.
Just to answer his question for last episode.
Good look. Good.
Yeah.
I kind of figured. I don't remember it being
right.
Expected,
so it's a completely different dynamic between the two in the game, and the traps are awesome in the game too, because there's like, if you go just like in the show, you go across the line, the bomb's going to go off. But they live in separate houses, and I guess Frank just didn't want this life with Bill anymore. He's like, and he's full of life in the game. He's that type of person.
Yeah.
And so we don't necessarily get to meet Frank at all. He's in the game. He's dead already.
Yeah, you find him as a corpse.
We find him dead. But we were Joel and Ellie run into Bill. So I like that from the game aspect that we do get to that Joel and Ellie, especially Ellie, gets to meet Bill. And they go through. They have to get to Frank. They're looking for a battery for the S10 truck that he's trying to give away. And they end up finding an engine with no battery in it. And he's like, well, where the fuck is it? Frank stole it. So they go to Frank's house, but they find him hung. He hung himself. And he's dead. And he's like, that's my, he's telling Joel, that's my partner. And I cared about him. And of course he dies in that god-awful shirt. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt in the game. But Joel finds a letter in Frank's house saying, I never really loved you. I hated you. I never wanted to live life like this with you. You're too hard, too stubborn. So he was basically using him for all his stuff in the town. But Bill survives. So he's alive somewhere,
Yeah, that's the mystery. Bill just went along and they never went back to him.
Yeah.
Real quick, you know what's funny? You mentioned Easter eggs. I thought we're here.
Yeah.
The shirt that Frank was wearing when he was in the hole, when Bill first rescues him and takes him out, when Joel takes a shower and he gets all freshened up, he's wearing that same shirt.
Nice.
It's the same exact shirt. He took Frank's shirt.
That's funny.
Another thing too. Oh, go ahead, Lexi. I'll let you finish. I'll jump
no, I like I said, I didn't mention or I didn't notice too many Easter eggs. Maybe I'm missing something or I didn't quite pay attention, but I was more going through both stories, game versus the show. But the other thing, and it's a touchy subject, was there was a lot of reviews and hatred towards this episode. And a lot of, like you said, gamers who played the game but didn't obviously pay attention, hated the fact that Bill was gay.
They review bombed us on IMDb. So you see
yes. Yeah. And obviously you guys didn't pay attention because they were partners. Bill in the game mentions it to Joel. Yeah, he was my life partner. And, I don't know how long they spend together in the game, but they also had gay magazines everywhere in the house. And Joel finds one in the truck that they finally they end up finding a battery, and they did fix the car.
What did Ellie say about the magazine?
Why is the pages sticking? And Joel's like, wait, what? Like he didn't know how to answer that. That's the game version, but yeah. She's like, I'm just kidding. But yeah, like who gives a fuck? Like you guys didn't pay attention. Obviously in the game, those gamers didn't pay attention. I don't know why there's so much hatred towards this episode. This episode was beautiful. I loved that they took hatred from the game because Frank hated Bill and turned it into love story. They swapped it. And I love that change. I liked the change for the show. I have no issues with it. I thought it was a great change. I thought it was an improvement, actually.
Yeah, 100%.
I did want more from Bill, honestly, and Frank. I loved Bill a lot more. I was trying to dress like Bill today, but I didn't grow my beard in time. Sorry, guys.
There's one thing I was going to say. I know JR had mentioned this. I know JR, he really enjoyed the Bill character. Bill and Ellie had a lot of nice moments together. They hated each other. But they're funny. It was funny. That's one thing I wish we got in the show.
Yeah.
But overall, though, it does work better. So, and Ellie, if you notice here, she finds her shirt that she's wearing in the game for the most of the time. She has her actual shirt and everything, man.
Yeah.
So now she looks just like the video game. So let's go, baby.
Right.
Let's go.
And we do get small moments between Joel and Ellie through this episode. Besides Bill and Frank, I loved their moments where they had their long talks and they're looking for weapons, I guess, in that convenience store or comic store or whatever it was.
Joel had stashed some stuff there, right?
Yeah, it's like a hideout.
Yeah, he had a stash or something there.
Stash house, yeah.
I loved the moment where she dropped down into the
basement, right? The basement.
Yeah, or like a hole they dug or something. And there was this. What did you guys think of that part? That little bonus question.
Yeah,
what did you guys think of that part?
Again,
the stalker.
She's brave because she knows I can't get infected. I can still die. But she just goes in there like nonchalantly, man. What I did like about the fact when she was looking at the stalker, I see people saying like, "Oh, Ellie's too psycho in this." The way she was, To me, I saw it as she's trying to learn about these things. She's trying, in a way, she's like dissecting it to see what makes them work, and she's infatuated in a way where it's more like not an obsession, but she's curious. She wants to know what's under there, and that's how I took it. Maybe I could be wrong, but I liked it because when she had the little knife and she passed it around, you see the stalker's eye just slowly following the blade, and little touches like that, man, like, oh my god, it's so cool. And then when she cut him and the blood started coming down, and I liked it. Yeah, I
took it as she didn't want to be afraid of it, because when they're in those high maintenance moments where it's life or death, I took it as she doesn't want to be afraid, because she's afraid. She's not afraid of the fact that she can't turn, but she is afraid of the fact that she can still be attacked and bitten. I mean, what any little kid is going to be not going to be afraid.
That's a good shout, yeah.
But I also love the fact that she's still a kid. She acts like a kid. Her personality is awesome. I'm totally all in for Bella Ramsey right now.
Y'all want some of that beef jerky that they were eating.
I took it differently. I think she was more curious. I took it she was more curious to kill it, because if you look at it, there's go back and watch it. There's a glimpse where it's almost like the clicker was begging her to do it. Just a look he gave her, and then she ended up stabbing him. So I think it was more, she talked to Joel. He said he's killed plenty of them, him and Tessa. So she wanted to experience what it is to kill it that way. She knows how to kill it next time.
That's
because
true.
Remember, they shot they shot all of them like crazy. So they really didn't know how to kill them.
Right.
Because all that scene in the museum, Joel was just shooting it all over the place. He wasn't really aiming for the head. He was just shooting.
Right.
It took her to basically stab it in the brain. Like, all right, he died with this one thing. So I think it was a little bit of both. She wanted to experience to kill it. And she knows she's gonna definitely kill.
Doesn't have a fucking gun right now. She only has a fucking sandwich.
Oh no, she does got a gun now though.
She does got a gun now.
She's
yeah.
Oh yeah, she snuck it from Frank's drawer.
That was Frank's. That was Frank's gun. Yeah. Wonder what Joel's gonna say when he sees. Right. That's gonna come into play somehow. Like she's gonna save Joel or something. Joel's gonna.
That's what I'm thinking. Is he's gonna be in trouble and she saves his life or something. A little predictable, but maybe I could be wrong. You never fucking know now.
Chekhov's gun. Whenever something's introduced, it's gonna come into play. JR knows I'm always talking about Chekhov's gun.
All right. So, what are we looking forward to for like the next episode or in futures?
JR, go.
I'll be honest. I go back to this. I do kind of wish. I know it was a good episode. I could have had Bill just for 2 more episodes. I would have been happy because. Right. It is. It's one of those things. I know they're searching. He has to take Ellie to the spot. But me personally, I would have stood in that place for a while. I would have took Bill and Frank's body, buried them. Like, all right, we got a whole time for ourselves.
I thought about that too.
Yeah,
whole time for ourselves. And
they had a mission, though. That's the problem.
And they had a radio. Once again, the radio they could have called those other people. Hey, where are you looking? Because they're still going. They still don't know where they're going, regardless.
Yeah.
So. That's another thing I thought. I was like, man, could they have used the radio to contact Fireflies? Because there is a radio there. That's how he contacted Tessa. Frank did. So, but for me, I'm just looking forward to see where they go now. Because now, eventually the Raiders are going to come around, and you got a glimpse of them. I mean, when you get a glimpse of something, it's going to come around the next episode. So I think the chance next episode they're probably going to run into these Raiders. who they are, and curious to see who's leader of them. Maybe it's Tommy. Who knows? I mean, if they're changing, like I said, I don't know the game, but if Tommy's in charge of Raiders,
Yo, let me
because
tell
he
you
used to be a
something,
Firefly. They said
now that they changed it up a bit, now we know. Okay, now they could take liberties now. Now that they're gonna have some creative freedom. So now you don't know. You never know.
Because Joel said that Tommy used to be a Firefly.
He said that. You're right. Yep.
So you don't know what Tommy's up to now. And but yeah, for me, and see where the road goes ahead, and see what the show got, store from somebody like me who doesn't know what's going on but is enjoying every episode.
Yeah, and I was definitely shocked with the major difference they made with Bill and Frank's story. I mean, from hate to love, which is awesome. But now we're just like, what's going to happen next? What are they going to change? What are they keeping the same? So I'm looking forward to whatever's going to happen. I trust the people that are in charge, I am also looking forward to, and I know you don't know them just yet, but Sam and Henry. They're another part of the story. So we have Bill and Frank, and now hopefully soon we'll run into Sam and Henry, who are the next people soon to meet, that Joel and Ellie soon to meet. So I'm excited for that. And I am ready to not cry every episode. I want more action.
Not a
and less I gotta watch a scary movie to get over the romance crap. So
you said action. That's what I'm looking forward to next episode.
I want action.
Now there's gonna be action scenes coming up. I didn't see the trailers. I don't watch them, but according to the game and the timeline now, I think this, and it's a funny moment with Joel and the truck with Ellie. I'm not gonna say what it is. I hope it's intact because that shit was hilarious. But yeah, good shit.
Yeah. So,
and we learned real quick before we go. Now we know why the radio was broadcasting 80 songs, because it was on a loop. So Bill had it. If he doesn't check in at a certain time, it automatically started looping 80s. Trouble. And there you go.
Right.
Damn, this show, man. It's so good, man. They don't leave anything unturned so far. Everything means something. It's great.
Right, exactly. You got to pay attention to absolutely every detail. And like I've been saying since episode 1, detail is by far the best thing of the whole series so far. Everything, to the outside scenery, to the buildings, to the characters, everything's spot on, and they make it even better. I honestly, just from playing the game to watching the show, I like the show better. But I like the game.
That's how I felt with Walking Dead. Walking Dead, the books, I love the books. Yeah. And then when the show first came out, I was like, I think the books are better because I don't know. But as it went along, and they take characters from the book that didn't get a lot of time, and they make them way better in the show. And so far, that's what I'm getting. That's the kind of vibe I'm getting. Like Bill and Frank. As much as like JR mentioned, Bill, he did have good moments, and I would have liked to see it. But I think as a character and moving Joel's and Ellie's story forward, I think this works a lot better as a whole. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's go. Look at JR.
Few things before we close out. I love that season 2 is already in lock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You guys heard that? Already in lock.
I'm very scared.
Me too. I also want to give shout outs to a few people who shared our videos, has been tuning in, who's been texting me like crazy to talk about it and, get their feedback. I'm going to shout out the first person who shared it, Wicked. And I'm going by tagger names, for privacy. But Wicked, you know who you are. Shout out. Thank you for sharing, watching, tuning in. I also want to shout out Solar Equinox, another good friend of mine. Thank you for sharing, tuning in. Also, my homies, my favorite 2 people, 526 and Munchies. Thank you for your support. Love watching and texting me like crazy on the feedback on our podcast. It's great to hear that people are loving it, sharing it, liking, commenting. I love it. So thank you, and keep doing it. And there might be more shout outs in the future. So thanks again for watching episode 3 of Horror Fiend Podcast featuring The Last of Us. I cannot wait for episode 4. I am here with JR and Ricky Grimes. I am Lexi. Until next time, stay scared, as Ricky would say.
They scared.